And welcome to my review of Ultimate Comics Spider-Man Volume Number 1. So this collects issues 1 to 5 and Ultimate Comics Fallout issue number 4. So after the death of Peter Parker in Ultimate Spider-Man, that basically New York doesn't have a Spider-Man anymore. You know, Peter Parker is dead. Everyone knows who Peter Parker is. He's Spider-Man after he successfully defeated Norman Osborn, Green Goblin, and we need. It's not like the town needs a hero, but there's kind of like this gap filled by Spider-Man, and enter in Miles Morales, a pretty young guy who basically gets same thing happens to him, gets bitten by a radioactive spider, which was interesting enough also created by Osborn, which is kind of a another spider that was inside the laboratories of Oscorp. So I thought that was really interesting. So we meet Miles Morales, and he's a interesting enough. I think why people first got that first issue and not why they like the character, but why they found this comic book interesting is that Miles Morales, Spider-Man, for one time he is African American, he is black, and he's also his father is black and his mother is Hispanic. So it is a mixed race, Spider-Man, and I think that's really interesting. So that really got me on board. But what really kept me through this whole thing is Brian Michael Bendis' writing. It's so good. I mean, this is probably one of the best titles he has right now, except for maybe All New X-Men. But this was before All New X-Men. So Miles Morales, he gets bitten by the radioactive spider, and he actually gets certain different powers than Peter Parker. He has this thing called a Venom Blast, which is kind of like a Vulcan nerve pinch, where he can just kind of go up to his enemies, and just when he hits them, it's kind of like this electroshock that goes through their body. But it's not kind of like a overarching, like you don't see electricity come out like Electro would, but it's kind of like the shock that just stuns them, and he can turn invisible. I mean, that's fucking awesome. That's really useful to have, and Miles actually uses his powers later on in the other issues, like invisibility to sneak up on his enemies, to uppercut Omega Red as one example. So this volume right now is kind of the farewell to Peter Parker as Spider-Man and sort of the origin of Miles Morales. I think it's interesting the character of Miles Morales. Basically, every character in this is really great. We have Miles Morales, of course. We have his father, his mother, the really kind people. We have his best friend, Genki. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Who's also Asian, which I think it's very interesting. He's still sticking with the multi-ethnic, Spider-Man. Give him a multi-ethnic friend because it'll be funny. But it's not about the race of the person. It's really how they're portrayed and what is their characteristics. And everyone's characteristic in this comic book, especially the new characters, as I was saying, Miles, Gangi are just great. I mean, they're so funny and they're full of wit, and you really enjoy reading their dialogue and their banter between each other. And Brian Michael Bendis does know how to write teenagers perfectly. Does really well, and I'm really impressed with Brian Michael Bendis' writing when it comes towards teenagers, and he still comes in with guest appearance stars like the Ultimates come in, basically the Avengers of the Ultimates world, Spider-Woman. Every single piece of dialogue is really good. And what made Miles a really interesting character, coming forward in this whole volume, is that he's very reluctant to become Spider-Man, and I always thought that was an interesting kind of character trait that he has. He doesn't really want to be Spider-Man, but throughout the next couple issues and volumes that I'll be reviewing, he really does slowly and surely find reasons to become Spider-Man, and how they handle how the reasons why he kind of throws himself into action. It's very well done. And we also need to especially talk about the art. I mean, the artist on here, her name is Sarah Pichelli, and her art is really nice. It's almost like we have this almost like animated cartoonish feel, but it's also very very realistic at the same time, which is brilliant. I mean, she's probably one of the best female artists out there, you know, of my knowledge, and I really enjoy her art. It's always a great time seeing her art, and the penciling is great. Inking is fantastic. Use of color, very nice color, awesome. And again, Sarah's doing a great job, and so is Brian. And I'm going to give Ultimate Comics Spider-Man Volume 1 a 5 out of 5. That's right. Definitely pick this up if you want to get into a new Spider-Man comic. I extremely recommend this. Alright, and that's it for the review. Make sure to like and subscribe. Also, check out the Comic Book Time podcast for July 3rd, 2013. Also, click the annotation on the screen if you want to see any of the links that I just mentioned. And if you want to see my review of Ultimate Comics Spider-Man Volume 2. So that's coming up next. And as always, thanks for watching.